Edward, thank you so much for taking a minute out for the program today. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
So, before we get into your work, I want to know this. 6 years ago, this pandemic changed the trajectory of so many things in our lives and our worlds. How did you get through that era, and how has it changed the way that you operate today?
I remember the day that things started to happen, and I had a person-to-person business. So we would run what we call fusion sessions and would get teams of leaders together physically. And it was really important to get people together. And then all of a sudden, my whole business model shifted, right? So it went from human to human to all remote. I didn't know if I could pull it off, actually. So we ended up kind of reimagining how we interacted with people. We put new platforms together to enable, as much as we could, the remote connection and the remote development, essentially. So we transformed our business within 3 weeks and tested it, and came out stronger, actually. So it was, tremendous shift for me personally, for everyone personally, but also for the business. Had to be reimagined, and we luckily pulled it off. So
And I hear that more and more. There was silver linings during that time period where you either you could sink or swim,
right.
and those that decided to swim soared. There was a level of it, you know. So, um, so let me ask you this: to kind of synthesize and get my head wrapped around exactly what you do. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of 12, 11, 12 year olds, and it's career day. And one of the kids wants to know what you do for a living. How do you explain to that 12-year-old brain what you do for a living?
So I'd say we create, we have fun, we get groups together and collaborate for a beautiful outcome. To say it simply, and I was thinking about, kids in their most creative space, right, with crayons or having fun in the playground. I think we lose that as leaders today, and it's a really important part of creativity. So, in the end, getting the most creative out of self, out of leaders, out of teams, and out of organizations. That's the adult way to say it, I would say.
And I like the tag term on your website, Unleash Your Genius. There's a part of that that really does tap into that wonder. There's a poet that I always say this quote, but it's totally true. We're born geniuses and buried idiots. Like,
Ooh,
right? As time goes on, so many fences go up, so many things that are a part of the natural creativity and that natural intellect that we have just erode away.
right. And it's funny looking at your background and my background. It represents, at least in my mind, creativity, right? So
Yeah.
hopefully we don't go to the grave as idiots. We maintain a little bit of that creativity, or all of it, actually. So
Well, and it's like I love photography. I've loved it before cell phones turned all of us into photographers. And I run out and take pictures all the time. I mean, my stepdaughter just moved to San Diego and she's sending all these images of the beach at night at sunset. And it's like I've heard that whole term that you hit a point where you've taken too many sunsets on a beach, but you haven't. Like every single thing, it's like jazz. It's like every time it's a different thing, no matter what. There's a minute thing, whether it's a bird flying along the horizon, there's a ship, there's something, there's a ripple of a wave. It's always different.
I love that. And I live by the ocean side, clearly by the pictures. And my dad said, "You'll get sick of the ocean side someday." But he wasn't actually saying that. He was saying the inverse, which is always appreciate where you live, right? And like you were just saying, the small things that make us human.
Being landlocked in Kansas City, anytime I get to see mountains or the ocean, I always wonder if the locals, if that shine ever wears off. And every time I ask, everyone says no, absolutely not. You're always cognizant of this wondrous thing that you get to be beside and get to witness every day.
I love it.
you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. When you were that age, you were at career day, 12, 13 years old. What was your dream gig? What did you want to be when you grew up?
I was an explorer, and I distinctly remember as a kid, getting the erector set, right? I'm building things and getting there was a kit called, it was an electronic kit, I think 101 experiments or something like that. I used to love putting together those electrical kits. So I always had this builder mentality, I guess you could say, and was always doing it as a kid. So eventually became an engineer, knew I was not good at it. So I went to business school. But I always had that, I guess, builder mindset. Even, earlier than that, being in my uncle's wood shop and building, you know, I was going to say things for my GI Joes, I guess, little airplanes or whatever it is. So I think I naturally had the drive or I guess, curiosity to build things.
Was Legos a part of that?
Legos were absolutely a part of that. Yep.
Yeah, it blows me away, being a kid of the 80s and seeing all the toys and the
Mm.
enormity of what people can do now. Like people are building Death Stars and whole Star Wars planet systems, right? Like that take them weeks to do. And when we were kids, we would be lucky to get the X-Wing fighter, and it would take a whole year to save up for Christmas to get it.
Right.
And it still wouldn't take that long to put together. But now you got these behemoths that cost hundreds of dollars.
Yeah. It's funny you're pulling back my childhood. So remember the models we used to put together, the
Yeah,
model kits and breaking up apart
totally.
the little plastic things and
Yeah.
um what are kids doing today? That's my question.
I know. I mean, we were really doing and tinkering. I mean, I even
Right.
remember there was some friends that had Dungeons and Dragons. They had little metal figurines
Wow.
and they'd get little vials of paint and the tiny brushes and they would make these ornate, wonderfully painted little like dragons, and it just blew me away. It was like, how are you doing that at such a small scale? But, that's what was going on at the time, you know?
So cool.
Yeah.
Yep.
It seems like I always kind of revel at being in this Gen X thing to see kind of the beginnings of the modem to this advent of AI and all of those things in between. We're definitely in a prime seed of looking at levels of like rotary phone antiquity to like microprocessing technology that we saw in the Jetsons.
Right. Yeah, yeah. Long time ago I worked for Polaroid and I was early and I remember the actual floppy disks were I don't
Yeah,
16, 12 inches. I
they're
I
huge.
don't I don't know. But then to your point, I mean I love the fact that you're recalling all this for me. How do you move from that 12-inch or 16-inch floppy disk to where we are now and the miniaturization of everything, but also with with AI, the capability to do, for me to do coding. I was doing that yesterday.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know, it's amazing. I mean, I'm getting to a point where I used to ask Google things. Now I'm going into ChatGPT to kind of call and do things like my son's really into the NBA. What's this player doing? Boom, I get in there. What's his status? I get everything, like this enormous list. And it's just wild to think that we have progressed to this point. And it's a technology that it like Moore's law doesn't even exist anymore, like
Right.
with AI. Like we are moving at that warp speed with Chewbacca screaming in our ears.
Yeah, absolutely. It's incredible to think, to your point, the exponential nature of what is occurring today. And I think the other side to think about it, and we might get into this, the leader interviews I did, one of the contrasts was every single leader brought up AI, right? But I call them the enlightened leaders would say, but we can't forget about our humanity.
Yeah.
We can't forget about human connection. And in fact, I talked to a VC that was running a company. I think you'd appreciate this name. It was called Human AF. So,
Yes.
right, how do you get back to, the models, the Legos, connecting, playing in the backyard, as kids, but also as adults as well, and never forgetting, the connection that we make, our connection today, or meeting someone in the grocery store, whatever it might be, it becomes that more important.
Yeah. The interesting thing about AI is I'll ask AI engineers all the time about that whole Arthur C. Clarke fear. What if this becomes this evil behemoth that we can't control? But I always get reminded that at the end of the day, it's almost like voting or a democracy. AI is an aggregate of human behavior.
Mm.
And if we go in with good intentions, or we go in with, we just literally want to produce, we want to do things in a productive way, it's going to grab all of that positive aggregate. Yeah, there's going to be negative stuff, but I'm always comforted by the fact that there's a huge level of all of us that use AI for genuine good.
Yeah, absolutely. I try and never go to the dark side, so I don't think about it often, right?
Yeah.
But you could, and your imagination could take over on that. But I love your idea around thinking about the positive things, that can be done, achieved, created, all the positive aspects of it. And, clearly the theory is that we're going to be in the biggest economic boom that we've ever seen because we can leverage tools that we've never had
Yeah.
in the past, right? And then making those tools available to people like you and I, or even better across the globe, right? So that we can, you know, ideas can take hold and be developed by folks that we can't imagine right now.
So I want to go back to your childhood. Are you originally from Massachusetts?
I am born,
Okay.
born, raised. Yep.
Okay, cool. So I'm curious about your acumen on leadership that's allowed you to get to this point of unleashing the brilliance and genius in leaders. I remember we've been speaking about the 80s when I was a kid, the president operated as that leadership lightning rod. And we had the Challenger explosion, the
Mm,
assassination attempt with Reagan. And every time there was a speech afterwards, there was a level, no matter where you were on political lines, it calmed my kid brain. And
mm.
we have all these examples of leadership in our lives. What were the early examples that either were conscious or subconscious that formed the way that you viewed leadership?
I love the question because it really makes me think. I would say, you know, that I didn't really look at outside leadership.
Yeah,
It was all, you know, some of this might be ego based, but growing up, I was a natural leader. So, for some reason, I was elected captain of my football team, even though I'm kind of scrawny. But it was a modality or mindset that things could be different. So it was more of an internal leadership than an external leadership. And I was also a little bit of a rebel, I would say. I didn't take conventional thoughts, I guess you could say. So I didn't really look outside. It was all inside. And I'd say I'd had great leaders around me. My dad was a great kind man, great leader. So I looked up to him in terms of how to conduct myself in the world. He's very soft, cared about people, had high empathy, always did the right thing. So that was one of my early leaders. And I would also say that I was the youngest child as well. So I didn't really have a lot of parenthood around me. They were like, good luck in the world.
I get it.
Yeah.
I was
So
too.
that's awesome. I love it. So I was left to my own volition, I guess
Yep.
you could say, in terms of, even selecting my college myself, paying myself through college. So kind of, independence was a very big thing to me. Had a great kind of mentors around me. So my brother-in-law kind of saw that I was a little bit troubled when I was younger, right? Not in the running with the right crowds or whatever it might be, but he kind of guided me out of that through different ways, you know, uh, through sports and actually putting me in leading, a hockey team. So it made me a bit of a coach in a way. So my early childhood was all inner leadership, not outer leadership.
I was just thinking the other day I saw a viral clip of Larry Bird talking about his top five players he would pick. And when he came to Michael Jordan, obviously Michael Jordan, I mean, you don't even have to go beyond his name, but he said the thing about MJ was that he always wanted the ball. When it got to that point, right, where there was a second left and he had to win, he was like, give it to me. So it's what you're saying about leadership. There's just levels of people that have this acumen. And there's others, and it's not a bad thing, that back up that leader or that's going to be the pivot person that's going to help that person get up there. We all play our role, and I'm wondering with what you've lived, how much of it do you think was nature? How much do you think was nurture?
I think it was all nature for me.
Okay.
And, again, dad kind of got his GED, right? Didn't go to college. So not wasn't head of GE or something like that, where I'm like, I can follow those footsteps. So I think definitely nature and it's funny things like I did walk into the kind of coaches in the football team in their locker room and I said, hey, I think the guy's name was Andy. Andy should be the captain of this team because he works the hardest. And the coach looked at me and said, Ed, you should be the captain. But so it's almost like selfless leadership. So it's attributes of selflessness, driving towards the right things most of the time, hopefully. That the reason I say, it's nature where I think leadership absolutely can be nurtured as well.
So is there any leader or entrepreneurial mind on this planet that you would love to sit down and have a lunch with and talk to that might help you on your journey?
I mean, it's funny you said Larry Bird because Kobe Bryant, right?
Yeah.
Late Kobe Bryant. I was in California when his helicopter went down, unfortunately. But, you know, it's that inherent drive, being early to I study athletes as leaders, but he is the most pronounced to me. His drive, his energy, always being, putting the work in, only looking at his own game, knowing where his, speed is limited, that he needs to get a little bit stronger, really knowing your own attributes and developing, your strengths more than anything. So I think he's definitely one person that I'd want to sit down with. And then, whether you love him or hate him, Elon Musk has to be another one that I would sit down with just because of his, I guess, systems thinking, his principle thinking, to really gain insight and deep insight into how he thinks, because what he's done, is just incredible
Yeah.
with all the companies and, you know, you know, personally, who knows? But I think as a leader and what he's done needs to be studied and understood, at least in my mind.
Yeah, I've heard him on Joe Rogan before, and he is just operating on a different level. And those visionaries do. It's like a level that we can't. And I love the idea of like even Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000 hours. It's that Kobe idea, right? No
Mm.
matter where you are, Malcolm kind of stretched that principle to extend to everybody from blue collar on up to a politician. Whatever you do, if you spend time doing it, you're going to possess a level of prowess that will be unbreakable,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
And even Tom Brady talks about that, talks about, um, I mean, I remember a lot of his quotes about how, you know, every season, the beginning of that hot summer training, he always expected that he was going to end the season the second week of February. He prepared for that, right? Like he
Yep.
wasn't preparing to end in December and not make the playoffs. He wanted to hold the trophy up in February. And it's a mentality. It's a manifest destiny almost.
Right. I agree. And, it's the epitome of leadership in my mind, to exactly what you're saying, that, whether you're an athlete or a leader, it's a system, and it's a system of, a stacked system. And at least in my experience, I've been in, Fortune 5 companies and startups, that leaders are missing part of that stack. And they're
Yeah.
not, as Tom Brady would or Kobe would, what is my system? What is my stack? What does my outcome look like?
Yeah.
And how do I actually achieve that? I don't see a lot of that in leaders.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. When you look back on your career and your life, let's say you have a dream tonight, you ran into the 18-year-old version of you and you walked in and you had a huge coffee table book in your hand and you laid it down and said, "This is your life so far." Would that young version of you believe that this happened, that this was orchestrated?
Mm, 18 years old. I would say absolutely not.
Would you give any advice?
To my 18-year-old self,
Yeah,
I would, yes, knowing, I'm 60 now. So, um, take care of your health, um, reduce bad habits, uh, now, because when you're 60, you want to be a lot stronger. I would also, I don't know that I would have done startups.
yeah.
Um, I would say become an investor of startups early, and clearly I would have given three stock tips as well
Yeah,
on there, right?
absolutely.
Microsoft,
Yeah,
Apple, pick something else, but yeah, stock tips, yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So, of everything that you've done in your career, what are you the proudest of?
I would say building a team of 30 of the most beautiful humans. I did that in a Fortune 5 company, had this vision and idea around accelerating, innovation, but almost, I always believe in steal like an artist, steal the best of, McKinsey or strategy and Bain, steal the best in human-centered design, whether that be IDEO or other, and then, steal the best from, the best product companies on the planet, and then teach and train some of the best people, to achieve, incredible outcomes. And I did that over a 10-year span. And I would say I couldn't have done it without my previous experience, clearly. But, built a team of highly capable humans, and they're doing incredible things now. So
So, at the end of the day, Edward, everyone has a perception of you family, friends, clients, colleagues, everyone that knows you, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I I think I said this earlier, but I'm an explorer,
Yeah,
right? I love to, my pattern or construct now is to understand leadership at a deep level. Um, and then I think even more importantly, what are leaders struggling with, and what's the antidote to those struggles? And then I read 100 books a year, probably read every leadership book there is, but I think, leadership is a black box in a way. So I wanted to crack the black box open and really understand what the problems of leadership, are today. So long-winded way of saying I'm an explorer,
yeah.
I'm a learner, but also, really want to bring solutions to bear. And that's what makes me happy is, hey, this is evidence-based. I know this is occurring within leadership and I can help you. So I think if I were to put it into one word, it would be kind of a helper would what I would say.
So, having an adventurous spirit, I'm curious if you could get into a time machine and you could go back in time and see one event in human history or go into the future and see what's going on, where would you go? What would you see?
I think definitely the Mars thing is super intriguing because I'd want to see that one to the end. And then previous in history, I think, I always remember going to there was a museum in Boston, and Dr. Wang actually invented the torrid,
Yeah,
right? Which is a one or zero, and the thing's about this big and it has copper wire wrapped around it. But I would love to see some early inventions, and it would just be super cool to, Da Vinci comes to mind too, like
yeah,
prolific inventor. Like, what was his day like? That
yeah.
would be super cool, right?
Totally. I
Yeah.
remember going to Italy where Da Vinci was at, and there was some, I don't know if they were replicas or originals, but he used to write with both hands and just the whole thing that he was doing and the little chunks of sleep and all of the things that he did to orchestrate. It was unbelievable. In fact, I think there was at one point I went up, and I think I was in Rome, and I went up a staircase into this, this piazza area, and someone said that he designed it so that when you got up there, you couldn't hear the traffic. And there was all this traffic, and I got up there and I was like, wow, I was like in an echo chamber. It's wild. Like the things that he was doing when he did it was just. I would love it would be a gift to be able to bring him back today to just show him what we've done. You
Yeah,
know,
how cool would that be?
that would be so cool. That would be the movie to watch, you know?
Yeah, imagine Da Vinci and Elon Musk together.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Those things, I think about those historical figures coming together, and it would be so cool. So cool. So, if anybody is ready for the next step, they want to reach out, they want to hire you, they want to learn more, any of the good business, where do they go?
LinkedIn is the easiest place.
Okay.
So Edward Boudrot on LinkedIn. So
Okay. I will put links in the show notes. Edward, this has been a joy, sir. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your story. Best of luck with everything.
thank you, Joe. Really appreciate you.
You bet. Thanks.